making Shabbos early. So there's the colloquial making Shabbos early, and there's the halachic making Shabbos early. So when we talk about the early Shabbos, we're usually talking about colloquially, it's the summer, it's May, June, the sunset's not to 9 o'clock, you're not going to get home until 10 o'clock, people don't want to eat a meal so late. So in the summertime, we bring in early Shabbos. That is definitely true. But what's also true is all year round we bring in early Shabbos. In fact, there's a mitzvah in our Torah called Tosefes Shabbos, that all year round we have a mitzvah to bring in Shabbos early. So whether Shabbos starts at 9 o'clock, 9 p.m., and you bring it in at 8:42, usually traditionally 18 minutes before sunset is the time for candle lighting. So whether it's 18 minutes before 9 or 18 minutes before 5, it's 12 months a year, and on a leap year 13, every week we have a mitzvah in our Torah we fulfill of Tosefes Shabbos. So the question is, how early can I make Shabbos? Let's say we love to have Shabbos, we enjoy it. I want to have a long weekend. Let's bring it in 10 a.m. Friday morning. We can have we got a lot of classes going on, and we'll set up a whole program. Let's begin Shabbos 10 a.m. So that you can't do, meaning you could functionally say you're keeping Shabbos, but halachically speaking, Shabbos cannot begin before Plag HaMincha. So like that means, so for instance, let's assume a 6 to 6 day, just to keep it simple. So 6 o'clock is sunset. So an hour and a quarter before sunset is Plag HaMincha. So in our case it would be 4:45. Tonight it's somewhere around 7:25 or so in that area, but let's just keep it simple. 6 o'clock is sunset. Plag HaMincha is 4:45. So the halacha is the earliest one can bring in Shabbos is 4:45, 4:46. You can't bring it in before Plag HaMincha. And in fact, that's where the whole mincha, in other words, when is the last time to daven mincha? When is the earliest time to daven Ma'ariv? So that's a dispute in the Gemara in Brachos, in the 4th parak of Brachos, between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, in terms of how late is mincha and how early is Ma'ariv. So Rabbi Yehuda says you could daven mincha up until, in our example, 4:45 Plag HaMincha, and at 4:46 you could start davening Ma'ariv, or today up until 7:25, and right after 7:25 you could daven Ma'ariv. And the Chachamim say no, you could daven mincha until sunset, about 9 o'clock today, but in our example 6. And then you daven Ma'ariv at nightfall. The time period before sunset is considered vadayom, definite day. When the 3 stars come out at night, and different opinions when that happens, that is definitely nighttime. The period in between sunset and nightfall, twilight in English, ben hashmashas in Hebrew, that is considered Safek Yom, Safek Laila. We don't know it's day or night. So according to the Chachamim, you daven mincha before Shkia. Preferably you wait to Ma'ariv until nightfall, but if not, minimally after sunset. However, the Gemara says, so how do we paskin? Do we follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, or do we follow the opinion of the Chachamim? So the Gemara says something interesting. The Gemara says, pick your own medicine. Ovid kamar ovid, ovid kamar ovid. They're both acceptable viewpoints. Whichever one you want to follow, you got to follow with one caveat.
Be consistent.
You got to follow one of them. In other words, in our example, if I daven mincha at 5 o'clock, so whose mincha am I taking?
Yehuda.
If I daven mincha at 5 o'clock, I'm taking the Chachamim's mincha, because Rabbi Yehuda says you only can daven. So therefore, so when it comes to Ma'ariv, then I have to wait for the Chachamim's Ma'ariv. In other words, I can't daven, if I daven at 5 o'clock mincha and 5:30 ma'ariv, it's what it's called a tarte de sasre. Tarte is true, sasre is contradiction. So I'm doing something which I'm contradicting myself, because when I daven mincha, it's screaming out it's daytime. When I daven ma'ariv, it's screaming out it's nighttime. So therefore, I can't do both. So therefore, I have to pick either one. So that's what you did tonight. You daven mincha before 7:25, and you daven ma'ariv after. So that's fine. And usually that's only done Friday night, but that's a halacha all week long. It's only Friday night because Friday night you're having a Shabbos meal. We'll see. According to some, maybe there's more of a reason to do it on a Friday night during the week, but strictly speaking, one can do it all week long, and some shuls do it all week long. It's also very late for many people to, especially elderly people, to start mincha at 8:55. They're not going to get home until 10 o'clock. So therefore, definitely in a time of need. But as long as you repeat Kriya Shema later on. So they point out that the earliest time to take in Shabbos is Plag HaMincha, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could start davening Ma'ariv at Plag HaMincha, so it's like Srach Laila, it's like the beginning of night, so the earliest you could bring in Shabbos is Plag HaMincha, so that's the earliest you could bring it in, is at 4:45, and an interesting problem arises in terms of candle lighting. Candle lighting as well, you can't light candles until Plag HaMincha as well. So let's say when they'll have on the calendar, let's say for instance, let's say Friday night, this past week, Mincha was at 7 o'clock, and you couldn't light candles to 7:25, 7:30. So it's like I was in a person's house, so this woman usually goes to shul, so my wife said, you're going to shul? She said, no, I can't, I have to light candles. Which it means is that she can't of course she could have went to mincha and walked home and come back, but what she meant, and she was right, is you can't light candles until after Plag HaMincha. So it doesn't have to be limited to a woman. Let's say your wife's out of town, let's say you're single, you're lighting candles. So it's one thing for, and I guess, a man could stay home also, but let's say you're in Avelis, I mean you have a mitzvah to daven the minyan all the time, let's say but you want to do a kaddish, you're in Avelis, you even have an additional reason, you don't want to miss mincha, so what do you get, so obviously if you have a wife lighting at home, it's not an issue, but let's say you don't, so what do you do in those scenarios? So actually it's really a relatively new shaila. I didn't see that many earlier posts talk about it. I was wondering why. It should be, I got this question for the first time, now it must be 10, 15 years ago. It was the case, I was in the Catskills, upstate New York, vacation village. This person, actually his wife passed away, and they had early mincha, so it was a 7 o'clock mincha, and I guess Prague wasn't until 7:15, 7:30, and I think it's a good point. He wasn't really asking me a question, but the fact that he was telling me this, I started thinking about the question. Somehow it came up that he lit candles before, because what's he going to do? He's in shul now, and it's not like I guess he could drive back into here, but it's like a 15-20 minute walk, and basically the person lit candles before Plag HaMincha. So I don't remember if he was actually asking me what he should be doing. He was just telling me. It doesn't make a difference. Either way, so I'm thinking, that's an excellent point. That people, this isn't an uncommon question. Like people, every time you bring early Shabbos, if you're not married or your wife's not around, it comes up all the time. And I saw no one was. That I looked, I think, people must talk about it, and I couldn't find people talking about it, and I realized why not. Because this is really a North American thing. In Europe, and Israel's been affected by the North Americans who moved there. So if the North Americans they'll make an early minyan in Israel, but it's not that late in Israel either. But in Europe, all these places, there was no early. I mean, again, there was early halachic Shabbos by definition, so that's why it never came up before. So it's more of it's something in America. So the question is, so obviously the ideal is, and that's the halacha, one has to light candles after Prague. So if someone calls up and asks me in the Shaila, so if they're observant and from, I tell them, oh, okay, so don't go to Mincha, especially if usually it's a woman, but they like going to shul because they like the Friday night davening, and so I said, okay, but don't go, wait to, light candles then go. I don't care if you have to miss, you miss. Someone who's who's Shomer Shabbos and listen, I could tell them that. But a lot of people aren't really observant. They're not, and they really want to go Friday night, and for them it's probably a good thing. So is there any is there any limit schus for lighting earlier? Is there, again, the halach is, everyone agrees you should light candles after Praga Mincha, and better to daven by yourself, Mincha, and light candles properly, and then go to shul. But is there any
even for a man or just for women?
So both from. So again, the ideal would be the ideal scenario for a man, if it would be, is he should let him go to shul, then come back, and then then go back. Assuming, I'm saying that, but I'm not saying it's always practical. That's good if you live 5-10 minutes, or maybe in theory, I guess if you drive, if you.
But with this guy, in this guy's particular case, when he was unable to go back, he was saying Kaddish.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm pointing out the problem. Now I'm going to try to suggest some. I'm trying to suggest some solutions now, even though I'm not finding a lot of company agreeing with me. But in terms of so basically that's when I started thinking about this question. So I always at least minimally let me think in terms of limit schus. So there's an ideal scenario where everyone agrees you should light after Praga Mincha. So I was thinking, is there any way where I could say post facto b'di'evad, if they lit before, again, should they make a bracha, not a bracha? We'll discuss that. So, what I'm saying now is B'Torah's thinking aloud, halacha v'alo l'maisa, we could discuss it. Different sources, I thought that maybe there's something to rely on. So it actually goes back to a fundamental question, and Tosfos in Shabbos discusses a similar question, is, let's say during that day it was candles, but let's say you had a candle lit from 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and now Shabbos is coming. Do I have to blow out the candle and relight it, or just make the bracha over the lit candle? So, or even not make a bracha. So Tosfos over there, his first opinion is you don't have to. I think there's different opinions in the Gemara whether Hadlakas near Chanukah needs a bracha. We assume it does, but I think this opinion was not even making a bracha. He said you don't have to relight it, the candle's fine. And the other opinion said no, you have to blow it out and relight it. What is the issue? What's the Nekudas HaMachlokes? Whether you have to blow it out or not.
Did it too early.
No, right, but I'm saying.
Sense of why you lit
no, but right. No, I'm saying right.
Did you have Shabbos in mind when you lit it?
So I'll just spell it out more clearly. Is what is the mitzvah? What is the nature of the mitzvah of Chanukah candle, of Shabbos candles? Is it lighting the Shabbos candle? Is it the Ma'isa Hadlaka? Is that the mitzvah, or is it no? It's the result. It's Shalom Bayis, you have light in your house, that's the purpose of it.
The result.
So according to the first opinion, again, maybe you say it's both, but it seems to be the result's enough. If you're saying you don't have to relight the candle, as long as there's light in the house, you fulfill your mitzvah. That seems to be the first opinion. The second opinion, why would you have to relight it? Because he assumes it's not enough to have the light. You might have you obviously might fulfill coincidentally some Shalom Bayis, there's light in the house, but in terms of your technical obligation of Hadlakas near, that you cannot fulfill without a Maisa. That seems to be the two opinions in Tosfos. The Ramah seems to go with the second opinion in Tosfos, that you need actual Maisa Hadlaka. In other words, And therefore, after Plag HaMincha, you need an actual lighting of the candle after. And therefore, those are the two opinions in Tosfos, but we seem to go that you need the act. So at this point, so far, no help yet, because you actually need the act of lighting. However, there's, what about the following scenario? Let's say it's on the other end. Let's say, so the halacha is you have to light candles from the earliest time is Plag HaMincha, and the last time is sunset. Preferably 18 minutes before sunset, but as long as you do it before sunset, you can still do it. What happens if it's Ben Hashmashos? What happens if it's twilight? Safik Yom, Safik Light, you didn't light candles yet, so what do? It's twilight, and you haven't lit candles yet. So what's the solution? It's Ben Hashmashos. And you just remembered, oh yeah, so what do?
Light.
So you can't light because it might be Shabbos. So what some suggest to do is go outside, find a Gentile, find a non-Jew, and let them light the Shabbos candles. Then you can make the bracha on it. So that's what some, again, this is a point of contention. That's what some posts can bring down.
Shabbos, then you're asking somebody to do malacha for you.
Yeah, but so what? That's why I said it's Ben Hashmashos.
Right.
It's Ben Hashmashos, and the halacha is we're not strict on Isuri D'Rabbanan. Ain't Shvus Ben Hashmashos, like it's only a rabbinical prohibition to have a guy do something for you. So therefore, during Ben Hashmashos, you're permitted to do Amir L'Nachris. That's why I pointed out so Ben Hashmashos. So you get a guy to light the candle for you, and then some say you make the bracha. So I'm saying is, so we see over there, so if that's true, then you don't need a Ma'isa Hadlaka, because the guy's lighting for you, guy's not involved in the mitzvah Hadlakas near Shabbos. So to me, it's a raya. You don't need we see, ideally, of course, you should light, but we see that it could be that those opinions say you can't do that. Maybe they're taking it, at least they're consistent. But there are those posts who will say halacha l'maisa, you should do it. So it's working there. You're making a bracha, even though you're not doing a ma'isa hadlaka. So perhaps we see from here, there is no, even though physically speaking there is a ma'isa hadlaka, but halachically speaking, we don't recognize a guy lighting the Hanukkah candles, or maybe that's part. And therefore, already to this room, maybe you can make the same argument before. I'll light the candle before. We'll get into when you should make a bracha before or after, but at least, so maybe lighting the candle before, let's take the clue, maybe light the candle before, and when you come home from Shul on Shabbos, to then make the bracha then. This cycle works in the guy, that's what I'm suggesting. That's a possibility. That's one limitzchus, that the person would light candles before, and again, this is all b'diavad, and then perhaps make a bracha when you get home. Maybe, the only difference I could see is one's lighting the candles before Plag HaMincha, one's after, but it's not, if a non-Jew is lighting the candle, halachically speaking, it's not a ma'isa hadlaka. So the same way you can make a bracha then, that's one is. And secondly, that's one side, what's one of the mitzvahs. Another one is, the Rambam discusses, and it's pasuk in Yeshaya, there's a mitzvah of Kavod Shabbos and Oneg Shabbos. Kavod Shabbos is, again, the Vilna Gaon basically says, Kavod Shabbos is everything we do to prepare for Shabbos, setting the table, preparing the food, etc. Oneg Shabbos is everything we do on Shabbos. So where does Hadlakas Neiros fit in? Is that a din in Kavod Shabbos or Oneg Shabbos? So it's clearly a din in Oneg Shabbos. That's the whole point of the candles, is that we should have light when we eat the meal. As we know, you can't compare eating a meal in the dark or eating a meal in light. If you don't see your food, you can't really enjoy it as much. That's what the Gemara says. A blind person is never totally full, because they never can see the food they're eating. So, whether it means physically or not, but just psychologically, if you don't, we all know, we're eating in the dark and we're looking, we know it does make a difference. The food has to be good, but how it's set up appealing. That's when you go to the fancy restaurants that charge $500 a head. They make it look nicer. Whether it's worth $500 a head to look nicer, that we could discuss. But either way, if you don't see your food, it doesn't taste as well. So either way, so they point out. So the Rambam has a chiddush. The Rambam says, you have to light candles before Shabbos. He discovered America. You know what? You have to light candles before. So, well, of course, I can't light candles on Shabbos, so what's he telling me? So the Brisker Rav and the commentators, I'll tell you what he's telling you. He's telling me it's not coincidental, but it's a din and covered Shabbos. It's a din and covered Shabbos. Part of the mitzvah is your house being ready, your candles should be lit, before and everything. So we see there are two aspects, and they're probably both. So number one is, twofold again. So let's say you light the candles before Plag HaMincha. So minimally you come home, you're still getting Oneg Shabbos, so why not, you can make a bracha on the Oneg. Whether you make a bracha, that's a separate issue, because that doesn't affect, even if you didn't make a bracha, but if you lit the candles and it worked, you get the mitzvah. The bracha is not an obstacle in performing the mitzvah anyway, but that's just an added issue, whether you can make a bracha. So let's say you made a bracha after, you make the bracha on Oneg Shabbos, you'll minimally get, like in the case of Ben Hashmashos, you're getting Oneg Shabbos, you're not getting Kavod Shabbos, it's too late. It already is Shabbos, you can make the bracha on Oneg, so why not here make the bracha on Oneg? But then I'm just thinking, Kavod, if you assume Halakha's Neiros is a din in Kavod Shabbos, then why does it have to be Plag HaMincha? The halacha is I could prepare at 10 o'clock in the morning to fulfill my mitzvah of Kavod Shabbos. I could clean the house. So if Halakha's Neiros is part of Kavod Shabbos, so maybe there's room to argue that you could light candles out the din of Kavod even before. I'm just throwing out another possible svara to find the limit zchus. And another one I have is that, let's assume even, let's say, making the bracha even before Plag HaMincha. Where do I have precedent for that? Making a bracha before you do the mitzvah. If the mitzvah is not till later on. So if I assume the Kavod Shabbos, the mitzvah is now. But either way, so what's the pshat? So it goes like this. That there's a halacha in Ner Shabbos, as we said, there's Kavod, there's Kavod and Oneg. So we find by other mitzvahs as well. There's a halacha of Tue Jun. There's a halacha of Tue Jun. Tue Jun is, we know that on the 30th day, when the child, you redeem it, to the Kohen. The Kohen goes in, and basically, speaking of a Kohen, perfect timing, you can give the money to the Kohen. You give the money to the Kohen, Tue Jun, like to redeem your son, so to speak. So the halacha is you do it, 30 days. So what happens if there's going to be, let's say you spoke to the Kohen, he's on vacation, he's out of town, he's not going to be around on day 30. So some posts can bring down, okay, so what you do is, on day 15, before he goes away, you make the bracha, and you give it to the Kohen, on the condition you say, and I want the mitzvah to be chal on day 30. So we see, even though the key amount, the fulfillment of the mitzvah is not happening until another 15 days, but we see you can make a bracha is on the Maisa mitzvah. The bracha is not going on the fulfillment of the mitzvah. Right now when I made the bracha, there's no mitzvah. I'm making the bracha now that it's going to work 15 days from now. And in general, we assume the bracha is going on the act, not the fulfillment. I'll give an example. Mike called me up to put mezuzahs up in his house. So whose mitzvah? If I put mezuzahs up in your house, whose mitzvah is it? Mine or yours?
Mine. But
who makes the bracha? So I make the bracha. Yeah, what?
Wouldn't you say the same thing on a bris milah?
Yeah, that what? Well, it's Mike's mitzvah.
Where the fact is, supposedly it's the father who's supposed to do the milah,
right?
But you have somebody else to do it for you.
Right. No. So it's definitely the father's obligation on day 8 to come out the son. So then when we have two brachas, and then when the father makes one, but you're right, but if the father's the mohel, then he could do both. But generally, he's a shliach, or it's a whole discussion whether shliach is by mila, but right, he gives it to the moel. The moel is basically doing the father's mitzvah, or whether it's the father or the sons, but it's definitely not the moel. The moel is not getting the mitzvah of mila, and obviously the father's not either. But it's the father's obligation to ensure that the son gets gamal. So ultimately it's the son's mitzvah, but at 13 it definitely becomes the son. Maybe beforehand, it's both their obligation, right? So what do we see here from the case of Pidyon Aben? You could make a bracha on the Maisa mitzvah on day 15, even though the mitzvah is not happening on day 30. So why can't you make the same argument here? You're doing the Maisa mitzvah, you're lighting the halakas neret before Plag HaMincha. And then, perhaps even with the bracha. And you're not getting, but the mitzvah is not happening until 20 minutes later or half an hour later. I'm saying we have precedent where you can make a bracha on a Maisa mitzvah even though the fulfillment isn't, so maybe you could argue the same thing here. By halachas ner, the mitzvah is not happening until later. First of all, maybe it is happening because of Kavod Shabbos, but even if you assume it's not, who says you can't make the bracha earlier and light earlier based on Pidyon Aben? That's one example. I'll give you another example if you don't like that one. Or if you like it so much, I'll give you another one. That it happens every year, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. Shabbos Chanukah. Because Chanukah is 8 days. Sometimes it happens twice a year, sometimes once a year. I think we just had it twice this year. So the halach is, when do you light Chanukah candles during the week even? When is this man halach? So the Gemara tells us, mitzvah mishatishka hachama achetichel regel min hashuk. The mitzvah is you light candles at tishka hachama. What does tishka hachama mean? That's a major machlokas rishonim. Do you light Chanukah candles at sunset or do you light it at nightfall? So the different minhagim today, but let me tell you a secret. If you're going with sunset, it's not a leniency, it's being strict, because everyone agrees it still has to light until the nightfall, until tichel regel later. That means you have to have more oil in your menorah, have a long candle. In other words, the Vilna Gaon, the Briskers, people light at sunset, but that's why they definitely have to use an oil menorah, because there's no argument when it ends. You still have to end on making up. Let's say you light candles at 5 o'clock. It still has to end at 7, whether you're lighting at 6:15 or 5. So therefore it's a chumrah. You have to have, so that's a discussion, what does it mean? So we assume generally, it's at sunset. We assume it's at nightfall. The general custom is we light Chanukah candles at nightfall. Okay, that's the halacha. So what do we do Friday night? The mitzvah is to light Chanukah candles at nightfall. The only problem is Ben Hashmashas begins 45 minutes or so before. I can't light Chanukah candles on Shabbos. So what do we do? So we don't light Chanukah candles? That's the answer. We only have 7 candles, so we don't light Friday night? Is that what happened? No, it's not my minhag. My minhag is I light before Shabbos. I think that's the minhag of Klal Yisrael. But let me get this straight now. So let's assume, we'll make up my example, 5 o'clock is sunset, so let's assume candle lighting is 5:30, 5:45, whichever time you want. So if 5 o'clock is sunset, that means candle lighting is 4:42, so I'm going to light Chanukah candles at 4:30. So basically all week long I'm lighting Chanukah candles at 5:30. Now Friday I'm lighting Chanukah candles at 4, but the mitzvah is not until nightfall. And you know what, the insult to injury, I'm going to make a bracha. I'm going to do a halach near Chanukah at 4:30. So how do you explain that? So some will explain it that it's efshar, that the mitzvah on Friday night is different than the mitzvah all week long. The mitzvah all week long is mishatishka, is at nightfall. But since it's impossible to light at nightfall, since it's only a rabbinical mitzvah, the rabbis obviously knew you couldn't light Chanukah candles Friday night at 5:30, so they said we're changing the time. On Friday, you are lighting it at the right time, and that's it. If that's the case, then I can't learn anything from Hanukkah candles. But others say it's not what's happening. It's the same mitzvah Friday night as it is the rest of Hanukkah. But since you can't light Hanukkah candles on Shabbos, you light it before. And that's why they say make sure you have enough oil or you light a Shabbos candle. So what are we doing according to this opinion? We are doing the Maisa Hadlaka, especially near Hanukkah, even worse, because near Hanukkah, everybody agrees the mitzvah is the actual lighting of the candle. You're not supposed to get benefit. By Shabbos, you're supposed to get hanaf in the candle. So we see from Hanukkah that I'm lighting Hanukkah candles and I'm making a bracha, even though my mitzvah is not happening to 45 minutes later. So if it works there, how come it can't work by Ner Shabbos is my question. Another mitzvah, someone who lights Shabbos candles before Plag HaMincha, whether you make a bracha or not, it's irrelevant. I mean, it's relevant whether it's a bracha of Atola or not. It's not relevant. What I'm saying is that's why I'd say someone not to make the bracha. Therefore, if you don't make a bracha, there's no harm. Or because if you make a bracha, and let's assume that, let's say it's wrong, so then it's a bracha of Atola. But if you light the candles before, you don't make a bracha, so you don't lose in a bracha. Everyone agrees you get the mitzvah of Shabbos candles even without, you should make the bracha, but if 1 week, whatever, you didn't make the bracha, how can you have Shabbos, you still get your mitzvah. So, it's just you're taking less of a risk. I'm just saying, based on the sources I'm giving, it even seems there's room to make a bracha, but I'm saying, but why get involved with the risk of a bracha?
Why do you get the risk? Why do you get the bracha?
Yeah.
Why do you get the benefit of a mitzvah if you haven't made a bracha?
In general, you mean?
Yeah.
You mean you're asking specifically, so let's say you put on tefillin and you don't make a bracha, so do you get the mitzvah or not?
Yeah.
It's a general rule that it's a good thing, and what I mean, the good thing is people give a lot of chashivas to the bracha. That's good. In halachic terminology, it's very rare. I'm sure 99% of the cases, if you do a mitzvah without a bracha, you get there's certain opinions that for certain mitzvahs you have to make the bracha to show you're doing it. But as a general rule, it gets this name any mitzvah, tefillin, sukkah, lulav. You should make the bracha, but no one says I don't get my biblical mitzvah of sukkah because I didn't make a bracha. If I sat in the sukkah, I get my mitzvah. If I shake my daled minim, I get the mitzvah. Whether I make a bracha or not is I should do, but it's not. So as a general, I'm saying bracha is not an obstacle 99% of the times, maybe 100, but I'm sure we could find, there are some opinions that we could find some mitzvahs where by the bracha definitely defines the mitzvah, different opinions. So whether we pass, let's say like Rav Yaakov Emden writes by Ner Chanukah, he says, you have to dafka show you're lighting it by name, because if I don't light it, if I don't make the bracha, it looks like I'm just doing it because I want to, I need the light. So, so not that we pass like him, I'm saying there are opinions, but as a general rule, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying there's no loss if you don't make a bracha. I mean, the loss is you didn't get a chance to do a mitzvah d'Rabbanan of making a bracha. But the risk reward, if you're wrong, it could be a biblical prohibition, so it might not be worth the risk reward. But depending whether, and then that's one thing. And then if you have the mitzvah, you have the mitzvah. If you don't, you don't. So again, when I speak to people, I'm not getting anyone to be. I'm not getting people to agree with me, even though they can. Even though when I give them my proofs, they don't have any arguments back. But But I'm saying is, so I can't. So the standard stock remains that you can't light Shabbos candles until after Praga Mincha, and that's what you should do. And in a case where let's say it depends who we're talking about. A case where, if it's an observant Jew, they should try to, they should try to work it out in terms of, might not, whether it's coming late or lighting, going back home, and whatever it's going, might be difficult. But in a case where, let's say, it's easy to do. Let's say someone's older. In a case where there's not, so there's definitely no harm in lighting Shabbos candles before you leave. So, I'm saying there might be room for a bracha, but there's no, I'm not, I'm throwing it out there. Cases I have by Pidyon Ben Chanukah, I see, but even if you don't want to make a bracha, I guess you light the candle without a bracha, and then, and then again, I think, either, I argue either case. I could bring a riot from Pidyon Ben Chanukah to make the bracha even before Plaga Mincha. I think it's a bigger chiddush, but what about coming home and making a bracha? The same way you can ask a guy to light the candle for you when you get, I guess it's no worse than coming back home and having the guy light the candle for you and making the bracha. So why not make the bracha after? I say no loss. So what about, the question is, what about, there's a halacha, if you miss a night of Shabbos, let's say, if halacha brought that in Shulchan Aruch, let's say a woman, talked about a woman, but it would about anyone, because a woman usually lights. Let's say you forgot to light Shabbos candles. So, there's a halacha of a kanas. If you miss lighting Shabbos candles 1 week, so the Ramah brings down a chumrah from the Mario. Again, this is a whole shir in its own right. So we'll have to discuss it more at length. But he brings down one has to light a candle. But so in other words, if you lit 2 every Shabbos and you forgot, so for the rest of your life, the Mario writes, you have to light 3 candles every week. Yeah.
Well, when it comes like this, when people make early Shabbos and they can't light candles because they're going to be going to shul before Plaga Mincha.
Yeah, with discussion. Yeah.
That's exactly
right. Yeah. So what do you do?
I can't light.
No, I'm saying is so what do you do? I'm saying so. Where do you go to shul?
Shabbos.
Right. So you're saying so you would that's the closest shul to you?
Where there's a gura, but they're both the same.
That's what I'm saying. So why don't you go daven mincha, walk home and light and go back, so you'll miss some Kabbalah Shabbos. In your case, you could do that. That's what I would recommend.
Can't you have a shaliach? Let's say you.
No, he lives alone.
I understand. So, there are different possibilities. Could you give your neighbor whom you trust is from the key and say, light a candle for me at the Zman, so I have a Shabbos candle burning when I come home. Or if you're going to somebody for Shabbos, you're single but you're invited out.
Yeah,
then you ask the woman in the house to light for you when it comes time to halal.
So right. So let's say
just setting your lights.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a second. With modern technology, we might be able to solve the issue. But in terms of those, right? So in terms of that, if you could get someone to light candles for you in your house, after you leave, as long as you're going to come back, or someone's, you're going to come back and get benefit, from the lights later.
Yeah.
Then the candles are being lit after Prague.
Right.
Or let's say, in theory, let's say if you eat home or you eat out usually.
Eat out.
Yeah. So the other option is no, but then it's
like
not going to help them. But I'm saying is then I guess I guess in terms of if you're mishtatif in because really strictly speaking the halacha is if you go to someone's house, but then that's also, even though the minhag is, but let's say you go to your mother's house, you go to your mother-in-law's house, really strictly speaking you don't have to light your own candles. The minhag is people do it, but then being mishtatif, let's assume you don't have that option, right? But that's the question where you generally light. We assume you generally light where you're going to sleep, but there is what to rely on if you can't light at home, and you could be lighting. But the same way, unless you if you have someone else lighting for you, we could talk about it.
Don't you have to offer them like a minimal amount, like a payment?
No, that's halacha by Ner Chanukah. We find mishtatif for pruta. I don't know about if Shabbos you'd have to do that. There's no halacha by that, because that's the shayla who's the chiyuv on. And by Chanukah, that's also a shayla by Chanukah, but it's a who's because if it's a chovas gavri, that's a similar discussion. Yeah, by Chanukah there's more of an issue, right? So they point out that in your case, I'd say that's the ideal case. There's no reason like you could miss some Kabbalah Shabbos, and that and then you can, but let's assume, I'm giving scenarios where, let's say, I'm making hypotheticals where you can't do that. If you could do that, that's what everyone would say that you should do. I'm just giving. So let's say a case of the Shulchan says if you forget a week, so then you have to make up. That's a chumrah. That's a whole separate share in its own right. So that's just a kanas for this, for the woman. So there are those opinions today because it actually it happened. My sister called me up a couple of weeks ago, and she realized, she called me up. It had already happened, but she called me up during the week that she forgot to light she forgot to light Friday night candles, and she wants to know for next week does she have to add a candle. Someone else asked the rabbi, and he told this person that she does have. She didn't ask the shayla, but someone else asked for her, and the rabbi said, yeah. But then she didn't tell me this anyway, but it's irrelevant. I only found out afterwards. But so she asked me, so I looked into it. I'm not saying that rabbi's wrong. That's the simple shot is that you'd have to light. However, I saw her in Avaja Yosef Chacham Avaja afterwards. But I heard from her in the name of Rabbi Badi, who's a postic. I think he's in Lakewood or Israel. That since today that we have electric lights, and therefore you have incandescent light, you can fulfill your mitzvah of Shabbos candles without any candles. So even without without knowing it, one could fulfill the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, and therefore they say you don't have to. The whole thing's only a chumrah anyway. So since we have electric light, Rabbi Yasha makes a distinction between whether the woman turned on the lights or someone else. But others, Avaji Yosef and Rabbi Badi, are lenient. So I'm just saying they're lenient to say you can fulfill your mitzvah of again. I'm just asking a question. So what are they assuming, that you turn your lights on like after Plag HaMincha or not? What I'm saying is, but all things being equal, if you're going away, if you live alone and you don't want to leave a candle there, we say there's an Indian of near this for the ambiance to make it look nicer. But really, the main light you're getting to Rav Soloveitchik always says when you light Shabbos candles, you should shut off all the lights in your house, then turn them on, then light your candle, because the main lights are the lights in your house. Those are the main. The candle we just do because that's the minhag. But really, we assume you can even make a bracha. It has to be an incandescent light bulb, not a electric light, and it can't be a fluorescent. So therefore, we can make a bracha. That's what I would do. Is I don't like leaving candles alone when my wife's away. I don't like leaving candles alone. So I'll just assuming I wouldn't, because then maybe I'll have my daughter do it because I'm leaving to shore before Plaga. Again, this is only if it's in the summer. If it's let's say during the winters, then I'll make the bracha on the incandescent bulb. But we assume. So I'm saying. So I'm asking how it works in that case. Are they assuming that the light was lit after Plaga Mincha? If it wasn't, then why is it any different than lighting the candle before? I'm just throwing out. But the bottom line is those who are lenient by saying by definition, unless you're out on a camping trip and you don't have any lights, you can have lights in your house. So you can be yotze your mitzvah of Ner Shabbos. So I'm saying if I'm yotze with the electric, so then. So if it works with the electric, so why couldn't it work with the candle also? I'm just throwing, again, so I've come up with the many limud schus, I think well grounded, but I still haven't had people be moded to me la halacha, that, because when I speak to a lot of people about the shayla, they always, right away they answer me no, and then when I start asking them these questions, they don't have answers for me, but they don't necessarily change, so I don't want to say this psak on my own. I want others. I'm looking for some gedolim to agree with me. That's why I'm saying it's halacha v'olamaisa. I don't understand why not. But since I don't see anyone else saying it, I'm not going to come out. That's why I'm only saying it as a limud schutz for those who are going to do it anyway. So I think is what to rely on. But if you ask me what to do, I tell you, you should daven, go to shul, daven mincha, go home and light candles, and then then go back to shul, or try to work something out. A worst case I tell you is you can't, then just light the candles or or do the electric light before, and then if you yotze, and don't, that's no harm. Definitely there's no harm in having in mind before you left your house that the electric lights are on, you're fulfilling your mitzvah, and if it is, it is, if it's not, you're not. And the only thing is maybe you didn't light it and you have to light another candle. We're relying on those opinions that are saying, that's what I have to ask. My question is on those opinions. Let's say you don't turn on the lights after Paga Mincha, but they also say that or not. Which I'm assuming they didn't make that distinction, but maybe they're assuming that you are turning on those electric lights after Pag. So that we have to see.
Or saying a shliachim, like your neighbor, to light for you.
Yes, so that should be, then that should be okay. The mitzvah seems to be, the bracha is going on the my side or yours, so that should be okay. Someone comes in and lights candles for you. I have to, I'll check and make 100%, but off the top of my head, it sounds like I don't see any problem with that. That could be a solution then, that they're doing it for you, in terms of, and even, forget about it, even this lighting candle without a bracha. So therefore, that you're having the Maisa Hadlaka, again, it should be okay because, at least in the case when you're going to someone else's house, they're lighting, but as long as the candle is lit, so everything.
What would be the issue about, is there an issue then, in India about the woman, let's say your neighbor, you're coming in and you're at shul, and you're single, you give her the key, she lights the Quran before you, does she make a bracha?
That's the thing, yes.
And then when she goes back to her place, she then has to make another bracha? She has to have in mind that she's not being in Shabbos for herself when she makes the bracha for you.
Right, no, that's in general, right, but that's two different questions, right? Her making two brachas, but in terms of her not accepting, she doesn't necessarily have to make a bracha, she could light your candle without a bracha,
right?
And you don't have to accept Shabbos when you light candles.
Right.
The rule of thumb is like this. For a woman who usually accepts Shabbos through lighting, if she's not going to, she has to have specific kavanah not to accept Shabbos. Or else we assume that when you light the candles, you're accepting Shabbos. But for a man who normally doesn't accept Shabbos until he's in shul, so it's not an issue. In fact, that's where somebody asked Moshe Shuvah, I want to light candles and drive to shul. Not in the summer, but I'm saying when it's after Plag, so he said it's fine. We don't assume for a man, but it's Rav Dafka man. If you normally accept Shabbos when you light candles, then if you're not going to, you have to have specific kavanah not to. And if you normally don't accept Shabbos until later, it's not a problem. You can light candles and still get into the car and drive.
So the woman lighting for you, in this case, let's say, could make the bracha on the candles for you, and then leave, lock your apartment, and go home, and then make a bracha and light your own candle, and have in mind to be in Shabbos at that point.
But she's definitely make a bracha on her own candle. So that gets into the din of Kol Yisrael Reivim Zeh Lazeh. All Jews are responsible for one another. There's a question whether where women fit in our rabbis, where a man can do it for a woman, with a woman for a man. So, but at the mitzvah that she's chayav in, so I'd have to.
Well, the wife does it for her husband. I know this isn't the wife in this case, but
right. No, so exactly no. So therefore, but that's her house. It's her mitzvah right. Also. She's not doing it for her husband. She is doing. It's her mitzvah just as much as it's a mitzvah to have it in the house. Here, you're getting someone else to do it for you. So pashas, it shouldn't be a problem to make a bracha. I would make sure. I just want to check and make sure that she'd make the bracha also. Certainly. But I'm not saying it's not. I'd want to be. I'd say if someone asked me, right, it was a second before, I'd just tell them to light without a bracha, and then go home. Not that, and then I'd check and make sure before. But it could be right. Al pi svara, I could find the reason why she can make a bracha in both places. But I'd want to make sure before I told her to make a bracha in my house.
Or could she?
But certainly light the candle, or either way, it doesn't make a difference which one she does first.
Could she light at his place, let's say, and quickly go home and light hers?
That's the thing. That's I would say is to have in mind. That's what I would say, because like Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky told his wife that she likes lighting with candles, and when they're in a hotel, he told her, okay, turn on the light in the hotel room, and then go and stand in the dining room and make your bracha and have in mind. That's what I would tell her. go lie in my house first, go home and have him have the bracha in mind, instead of why get involved with another bracha.